whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be biblical.
Hello there, welcome to Patriots Across the Pond and Friends, episode 29 with Stu and Elisa. Today we have on David ADELMAN. David's local to me here in the UK. David has a website called The People's Lawyer, UK.com. He's a regular on the Yellow Board tour and Webbers on Roundabouts, where we stand on a Saturday afternoon trying to wake up the public with do not take digital ID and various things like that. David has also written a book called School, No Place for Children, and David's one of the only people on the Yellow Board tour that wears a Trumpy hat like me. So he does like to talk about the global situation, Trump, Q, and everything that's going on, even getting into the woo-woo a bit. And I should just read a little intro of David's website. David, aka The People's Lawyer, is Cambridge University educated and a qualified solicitor by training. But as a young man, David soon turned his back on conventional work and office incarceration to explore life by actually living it. After teaching English in Spain for several years, back in the UK, he was awarded funding to teach a cards game for thinking and social skills in schools around the country. His experience in the education system led him to research and author a book now published as School, No Place for Children. He gave a keynote speech at the Glastonbury Symposium in July 2019 and was about to embark on a nationwide tour on education when COVID hit down. The result is now visible on his site and available at in-person live talks and online courses to massively upgrade people's general sense of their own power. And today's episode is called Worrier to Warrior. David, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. 40 years in 40 seconds. Blimey, bloody hell. Yeah, thanks. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be on, Stu and Elisa, and let's get cracking.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have to tell you that this is an exciting episode for me because not a day goes by that I am complaining and bitching to everyone around me with, you know, just the way we're such prisoners to this whole system. You know, somehow or another it comes up, whether it's a mortgage payment or a ticket or, you know, whatever. It's just getting to the point where if you're aware of how things are supposed to be versus how they are, it's so hard to not feel that anxious energy. So if you don't mind, Stu, I have one question before we begin. I was, you know, your website is fantastic. There's so much information on it. I love that you offer courses. My question is this what we're going to talk about all applicable to the US? Is this sort of like a global education that we're going to get here and talk about? Is it specific to the UK, or are there any, you know, areas where it's a little bit here and it's a little bit there?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that, because literally a week ago, maybe even less than that, I had someone from the States email me an incredible testimonial saying that she purchased the course in 2021 and it's grown unbelievably since then. So it's way better, or certainly way more in depth. And she said she was able to apply it stateside across the board, at school, at home, and in other situations. And she said it was life-changing. And she actually said it's the best investment she's ever made in anything.
Wow.
So I have to confess one thing, that in the last couple of years, it has gone a little bit more UK-centric than it was. But none of the generic content has been removed. There's quite a lot on how to not pay tax as a US so-called citizen. There's a lot of stuff on basic principles of trust and equity and laws of commerce. These are international concepts. They're not local. They're not parochial. So most of it has an international universal application. And for the convenience of most of my students who are UK based, because being prominent in the UK and the freedom arena, I come across them, they come across me. So they're going to end up by sort of the laws of inertia, that they're going to end up being my students. So I do pander to them a little bit, but I've had many international students: Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Hungary, United States, Canada. You know, they are a minority for reasons that I've just hinted at, but I've not had anyone come back to me and say that course was a waste of time, or can I have my money back, please? It's just, it doesn't work that way, because this theme that we're all on of realizing who we really are, it's a global, there's the word, isn't it? It's a global theme.
Worldwide.
Worldwide.
Worldwide, thank you. Oh, yes. Saved by the bell, right? it's a worldwide theme, and really any information that you get from someone who's genuine and in good faith, it's going to be of value, either directly or indirectly. And even in the worst case scenarios, it will lead you to do some local research. So people can translate the principles that I give them into California state law, Oregon state law, because the principles don't change. The principle of privacy and trust law is a universal concept. So, you know, so that was a bit long-winded for your question, but there you go.
No, well, very informative.
Yeah, that's good. So, David, just, you know, we ask everyone, can you just sort of describe how the awakening process has been for you? You know, how long you've been awakened, you know, obviously your thoughts during COVID and all these sorts of things, just as an introduction on a personal level.
I hit the ground running for COVID. I really did. I was ready for it. The only thing I had to do was I had to spend 2 days researching viruses. And I came up with the Rosenau study in 1918 that actually definitively proved that there's no such thing as transmissible virus. So that destroyed germs. And that was the American Public Health Association. But they buried that, of course. Right. So I've woken up more since COVID, but the seeds were, it's been a gradual awakening. I was awakened to, even when I was very young, I was aware that I didn't quite see the world the way other people did. And we don't really have time to explore that, but I think some people out there will know exactly what I mean. And then I was a bit of a black sheep in my family. So it was technically a family of 5, but there only seemed to be 4 people in it. Because I was kind of Mr. Invisible, you know, the third person. Yeah. Oh, where is he? You know, I'd come back. I went on a holiday to America to celebrate my graduating, and I came back after 6 weeks of the most amazing time. And all I got was, "Oh, you're back." You know, So I've had this long-term alienation. Now, that's the bad news, but the good news is that when you are kind of born alienated, it means you've got this resilience that you can resort to cope with the group thinkers not seeing things the way you see, or vice versa. So, in my younger days, a feeling of alienation, but not being fully awake. I knew that there was something not quite right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I think I would say 9/11 was the accelerator, where I actually started to look into, well, what actually is going on in the world that they're not telling us? Because before that, I was quite apathetic. So one of the reasons that I wrote the book that I did write, and I'm currently writing the sequel called Schooling and Other Crimes Against Humanity, which, you know, some people thought book one was hard hitting. They ain't seen anything yet. And again, just circling back a little bit, I was aware that the medical system was not quite right. When I was working as a trainee lawyer, I was offered medication for stress, irritable bowel. And I said to the doctor, well, I'm only 23. How long do you want me to take those pills? He said, well, for the rest of your life, if necessary. And I thought, and that was my medical wake-up call. And then the legal system was not offering me anything of true value. So that was my legal wake-up call. The last big wake-up call after the geopolitical one in 2001 was the financial one. And that happened around about 2012, 2013, when my income stream just zeroed out because the funding that I had to go to schools to teach this card game was taken off me. And I watched a video or a film documentary called The Nature of the Cage with John Harris and some other, that was mainly UK-based people, actually, if I remember rightly. The Nature of the Cage. And for the first time, I was hearing that there's no such thing as money. It's all fake. It didn't shock me because, you know, I'd already rejected the medical system and the legal system. And I could starting to see through the geopolitical system. So it was just another element in the mainstream narrative that was being taken apart. And eventually that led me to start teaching people the elements of freedom, from medical tyranny, financial tyranny, legal tyranny, in a hands-on course at my home in 2017, 2018. And then when COVID hit, I found myself vocalizing the alternative narrative and feeling very, very, very lonely and isolated, even by my standards, because it was early April 2020. Hardly anyone had woken up, or that's how it appeared to me anyway. Or certainly those who were awake were hiding from trouble, in inverted commas. So when I took my microphone onto the streets, I literally had a band of misfits behind me, sort of long-term mental health people and people coming off all kinds of addictions and sort of, the waifs and strays. So when people shouted at us, "You're a bunch of nutters," they were probably at least half right, to be honest. And but eventually people joined in. The big catalyst for progress in the northwest of England was when the people from Liverpool joined in, because we'd built it up to about 100 in Manchester, but Liverpool, they're more used to showing up to show their dissidence. So they brought a few thousand across one day in the summer of 2020, or maybe the autumn. Can't remember. It's all foggy. It's all gone foggy. And then the freedom movement in the Northwest was up and running. So I lit the fuse, but there was some dudes in Liverpool that took it to another level. They had a bigger following. I wasn't even the people's lawyer then. I was just David, And then November 2020, I was on the promenade, the seafront at Morecambe, which is in Lancashire, Northwest, just above Manchester. And there was police circling us. There was 200 of us. The rules said 30 maximum. So long story short, we were all the speakers were arrested that day. I was de-arrested in minutes. But on that day before I was arrested, I had to address the audience and tell them who I was. So I thought, well, I'm not going to give the police a free lunch. So I just I went into a bit of a trance, and on my head landed the phrase, "the people's lawyer." And it then started to make itself known, got a website, 2021, May, June, I had a website going. The talks that I'd been doing as David became the People's Lawyer Talks, and the in-person consultations became online, tutorials, courses became an online course. And And it just spiraled up from there. And then in the last year or so, I've started doing consultations. And I've introduced an intensive course because the original course got too big. And people haven't got time. We're running out of time. So, you know, people need the knowledge and they need the courage fairly quickly, you know, because there is an acceleration going on. But yeah, so there you go. You go down rabbit holes and, you know, you come across flat earth and you come across Q and you come across all kinds of other things that just add icing on the cake. But the cake's already kind of baked and you're just adding bits and pieces onto it. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a very similar sort of timeline to awakening as I have. I knew something was wrong at school. I didn't really know why for 20 years. And then 9/11 happened. And, you know, it's sort of like come on since then. So obviously, Elisa and I have got some questions and stuff. But people want to know, oh, I don't want to pay my council tax. Can I get out of paying my bills? Do I have to pay this? What do I do if bailiffs come round? All these sorts of questions people ask, and then you've got other people that say it's common law, or there's no contact. You just take yourself out of it. Other people say Article 61, and all these sorts of things, and it's very confusing for people to make that initial start and go, right, I want to put a letter into the council asking them this, or I want to do this. How do people start off on this journey of bucking the system and potentially getting out of paying some money that we shouldn't be paying?
Well, I'm going to add well, I won't say it's a disclaimer, but it's a rider to what I'm about to say, because there's no blanket answer to that question, because everybody has got their own story and their own context. And what life has taught me is something that person A might find routine and you suggest it to them and they just do it. Person B might find it the most frightening thing in the world. And even if person B sums up the courage to do it, they may be married to person C that has the same level of fear that person B used to have. And so there's all kinds of reasons to proceed with caution, but on the assumption that you have the requisite level of courage, the easiest solution, and this won't work as well in the States because the agents are more belligerent and they come with guns, some of them, but certainly in the UK, if you have the requisite courage and you don't have anyone indoors breathing down your neck and telling you that you're crazy, then disengaging completely and keeping the door shut and locked will do the job. And the reason I say that is, well, there's lots of reasons to say that, because I have students who do that and it works for them. But you have to have a certain mindset. You have to know who you are. So you have to send out an energetic ripple of, you know, that's as far as you go, but you don't do it in words, because the problem is if you engage in any way, unless you are engaging from a very knowledgeable and researched standpoint, the engagement will backfire. It will actually aggravate the issue. And it aggravates it even more if you try and tell them how wrong they are and how right you are. It's shooting yourself in the foot. The halfway house compromise, which I've been teaching for a long time, is to write a notice of conditional acceptance. But again, if you don't sign it, if you write it in black ink and sign off the way you've been trained to sign off anything at school, that can lead to problems. So there's certain, you have to be very cautious. And that's why courses like mine exist, because people need to know that if they are going to engage in a dissident way, what is the safe way to do it? And that's a process. That's a learning curve, you know, that can take many, many months, if not longer. So yes, in a nutshell, the system needs your compliance. It's built in such a way that it's a system built, well, I say built, it floats upon the seas of commerce. and it operates on presumption. And unless you know how to, I'm kind of rephrasing what I've just said before, but in a more legalistic way. Unless you know how to rebut the presumption that the system operates on. So, for example, it presumes that you are the legal name, that you are trading or doing commerce, you're operating or acting in commerce. You are a vessel that was created and therefore owned by the state, which is now a corporation. Therefore, you are subject to piracy by any corporation. But if you know all that, then you'll know that if you maintain your manhood or womanhood with a shut door and disengagement, you're safe. Well, you may still get visits, but but you'll be able to deal with them, because when you don't give them any kind of consent or authority, if you don't feed their presumptions, there's not a lot they can do. If it's assuming it's a civil matter, there's no imprisonment on a civil debt. That's the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. There's no right to enter your home. We have in this country, and America's got, I mean, the US has got its constitution, so they've got even more stronger protection. But without a written constitution, we need to rely on precedent. And we've got an ancient case called Entic versus Carrington. That's ENTICK versus Carrington RR, 1765. The judge was quoted. So it was a case in which a government agent burst in to a homeowner's place and looking for goods to seize because the homeowner allegedly owed some tax. But it went to court and the judge said, no, without the homeowner's permission or license, they use that word license, you cannot enter. Permission required. And under ancient principles, a man or woman do not require permission unless they're doing something that is forbidden by the law. When it comes to a corporate agent, it's the other way round. Unless you give them permission, they require legal, they require a legal code that gives them the right to do what they're doing. So that's a reversal of our position. We can do whatever we want as long as it's not against the law or causes harm, loss, or fraud. Whereas a government agent has to show exactly what they're relying on. It will normally be a warrant, but most warrants are fraudulent now. They've gone lawless. Back in the day, and even I'm not old enough to remember when that day was, to be honest, but back in the day, fraudulence had some semblance of legality and lawfulness because they were applied for in the correct jury, to a judge. The judge heard some evidence, sworn or by affidavit, issued a warrant. The court seal was applied to the warrant. The judge signed it, and the order was specified and dated by the clerk to the judge, or the assistant assisting the judge, or the admin, the court admin. Those days are gone. Warrants now appear on iPads. And even when they're written out, they're not written out. No one signed them. So basically what they're doing a psychological, I'm on lots of groups and people are, this is where it gets very frustrating. The knowledge that some of us have had for years, we've had 5 years now, over 5 years now, to catch up. And some people still haven't caught up, and it's driving me bonkers. I mean, if they'd have had 5 months or even a year, maybe a year and a half, okay, we'll let them off. But 5 years, they could have done a PhD in that time. And yet they're still saying things like, I've got agents at the door. They've clamped my vehicle. What can I do? Where have they been? Where the fuck? Oh, you swear on this channel, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm going to fill my boots. Where the fuck have they been? Or if you're watching this, where the fuck have you been? It's like, all right, nothing personal. I'm sure there's a story behind the fact that you've not been able to catch up. and you're going to catch up the hard way. It's, you know, there's an agent at your door clamping your vehicle is soft porn compared to what's coming down the pipeline. So this is where, if you don't get your act together with an agent at the door who just wants to take your vehicle, which is, you know, which in this country anyway, you just angle grind the clamp off because you've got lawful excuse, because they have no, unless they are repossessing their own property, only the owner of a vehicle can clamp it, nobody else. And in this country, again, I can't speak for the States, but in this country, there's one exception. In a criminal matter, if you've got an unpaid criminal fine and they have a criminal clamping order, they can clamp it. But that's rare. In fact, I've never even seen one of those, to be quite honest. But these clampings or immobilizations, you probably could, Elisa, that's probably what the word you use, actually. Immobilizers, when they fit immobilizers.
Right.
In civil matters, unless you're repossessing the vehicle, it's a no-no. Computer says no. So that's one thing. Now, so taxation, going off onto taxation. Again, this is completely universal. Taxation of a man or woman is voluntary, consensual, and contractual. But my God, the cognitive dissonance that is created when you say that, even amongst people in the freedom movement, in fact, maybe especially amongst people. We have someone on this side of the Atlantic who I've met many times, great guy, love him to bits, who's touting withhold your tax because what they do with it is criminal. And I don't have any real issues with that because that's kicking the ball in the right direction. This is Chris Coverdale and his tax rebellion. Okay, that'll get the job done for a lot of people who are too nervous about doing it another way. But the way I teach is that just write to the tax authorities and ask them to show where the obligation is. And this started for me years before I really knew what I was doing. 10 years ago, after I was defunded from schools, I'd been filing out my tax return like a good little boy, but I had no income to declare. So, and they're still sending me reminders to fill out a tax return. And I wrote back saying, I've gone private, because by this time I'd watched things like The Nature of the Cage and I knew the value of being private. This was still 2 or 3 years before I started teaching how to be private. And I just wrote this very rudimentary sort of Freddie Flintstone letter. Dear HMRC, in the IRS, it would have been in America. Just to let you know that I've gone private and I'll just be working and serving other men and women in the private. Within a month, they'd cancelled all the penalties, £1,000 penalty, and I have not heard back since. And that was 10 years ago.
Okay, I want to just stop you there because like maybe we'll go with each little thing. So we're talking about the income tax. So for someone here who's been a good little boy or good little girl, paying their taxes every year, right? Which I'm sure there's lots of people listening. You are saying you basically write a letter to in the States, the IRS, saying, you know, just to let you know I've gone private. And that is apparently enough.
Well, there's a bit more to it than that. I think just to cover myself here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my course materials up because I've got something on the American situation. So, right. Now, one of the reasons why I had no problems whatsoever in doing what I did was that I'd been a low-grade taxpayer. I was paying pittance. So it may well be that I got no resistance because they decided that it wasn't worth their trouble. But I still feel, so today I would write something a bit more powerful than what I actually wrote. Again, it's all about presumptions. Are there any presumptions that need rebutting? Are you a registered voter? Do you have a corporate, are you still using their vessel? So they might sniff around if they think they can grab a chunky amount of tax from you. They might sniff around on either side of the Atlantic and to see whether or not you are playing the system, you know, sort of using the system and then stepping away. You know, so for a clean break, if you have gone truly independent and you in this country, you don't use the National Health Service. You don't have that. I mean, medical system is private in the States anyway. But if you are leading an independent life, you've been very careful about how you sign anything. So you sign your driver's license, all rights reserved. You know, if you've been very careful to cover your tracks and either go private or at least keep one foot in the public, but while reserving all unalienable rights. And I use the phrase unalienable because it's more powerful than unalienable, because un and at are both negative. So they cancel each other out, which means lienable, which means you can surrender them. So I teach that rights are birthrights, like the right to roam, the right to travel, the right to think your own thoughts, the right to make your own medical decisions are unalienable rights. So yes, right. Let me just see. Let me just find something that's in my...
Now, just on going off of what you said about using the system and not using the system. So I'm just going to name a few things. So here in the States, like you said, we have private insurance. So that's a different, you know, that's different than from the UK. But for example, say someone's worked a good portion, you know, their whole life, right? And they get to the age in the States where they're now eligible to collect Social Security and they're collecting it. Does that mean you're still in the system, even though you're entitled to that because you paid in, or that doesn't matter because you're kind of admitting that you're part? See, this is where I think a lot of people get confused, because it's like, what am I in? What am I not in? How do I pull out of this? If I pull out of this, does it affect that? You know what I mean? Like, and people get scared, right?
It's a great question. It is arguably the question, actually. This will sound like a bit of a cop-out. It's not meant to be. It's all about consciousness, your level of consciousness. Who do you know that you really are in your skin? Who are you in your skin? And are you conscious of the fact that that man or woman can be in the system a beneficiary of the system? Can be a beneficiary of the system, as long as that man or woman knows that it is not the legal name, that it is using the legal name for its own real life, real world, real time benefit, which it or he or she is always entitled to do, because the system, believe it or not, was set up partially to benefit us, but to benefit us in such a way that we could never do anything more than subsist while the elite cream off, you know, more than they need. So they don't mind us. I mean, they need us to subsist, because if we go, they go. Right. They've got to, as parasites, they've got to feed off something. Well, it's us. So the compensation, if you like, is, you know, they give us derisory minimal benefits, which we are entitled to, especially when we've paid into the system. But we don't necessarily have to do that, because we have, you know, there's a birth trust, a birth estate, which we pay into inadvertently whenever we sign anything or make any payments to the state. So all we're doing is, when we pay license fees, taxes, commissions, interest payments, it's going into the birth trust, and on our demise, it's cashed by, you know, there's an annuity that's created. The government is a nominee of this policy for which the estate is collateral, and ultimately it's our life is collateral. So there's a lifetime annuity which is cashed in by the government on our demise. We don't know anything about it. We should be mentioning it in our wills, but we don't know about it. Now, I don't profess to be an expert on this, and I don't aim to put my annuity in my will, because I think things are going to change too quickly for that to be relevant, to be quite honest. It's background information. So yes, as long as you know who you are, that you are a man or a woman, presumed to be something else by the system, but as long as you know how to rebut that presumption, and I'm repeating myself deliberately because it does take some learning this, then you can sign off anything as the man or woman on the right-hand side of your document, which is the creditor's side, and put it on behalf of. So the man or woman is signing in there. So in my case, it would be David Mark. It's my 2 Christian names, given names. Signing on behalf of, in lowercase, that's also key. So always make sure that you're only ever the man or woman, which is David Mark, not David Mark Edelman, David Mark. Leave the surname alone, because that would be taking the Lord's name in vain. Another phrase that people have got completely the right. People think of that, that's something to do with divinity and being sacrilegious. No, the Lord originally was Caesar and became the Pope. So and the Pope owns your name because it was put on the birth certificate that was sent to the Vatican. So when you use your name incorrectly, you're taking the Pope's name in vain. So sack the surname, the family name, the last name, delete where applicable. Just keep the first names lowercase, blue or red ink if you've done a status correction. That's another day's work. We'll say blue for now.
Is that why they only let you use black ink on income tax forms?
Correct. See, this is one way to rebut a presumption. And that's why they've gone online, because online it's only black.
It's always black.
Yeah, so they corner you, they trap you, and when you write lowercase, the software will put it into block capitals or uppercase. So you have to be very careful, very conscious, and very wary. So first names only, lowercase only, never black ink. Signing on behalf of 2 entities. One, and this is what I teach, and I've been teaching this for a couple of years on my course. One is the crown corporate entity, the crown corporate person that's actually the trustee of the estate. That's David Mark Edelman in proper case. So capital D, capital M, capital A, the rest lowercase. And also on behalf of, technically in Latin, it's per pro, PP. I think we all know PP, but that's per pro, on behalf of. And now on the bottom would be David Mark Edelman, Edelman in block capitals, which is the Vatican estate name. So you've got the man, the trustee, not the beneficiary, and then the estate. But the trustee can be the beneficiary in proper case. So it is presumed trustee or beneficiary if you know who you are and you put principal beneficiary stroke secured party creditor. I'm getting a bit technical now, but all I'm saying is that if you know the tricks of the trade and the traps that they lay for you, then this is very doable. And more people are waking up to it. But as for just not paying, again, it can be done, but it takes courage, and you need to keep the door shut and disengage from all posts. You can, in this country, we're so naive in this country. We've got gaps in our front door where they can slot mail through. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's like that's self-harm on a grand scale. And people, and a brown envelope with a brown, the color of fear, isn't it? The color of shit drops on your carpet, and I've been through this myself. The brown envelope would drop into my internal corridor, into my hallway, and I'd just go into jelly wobbles, and I've outgrown that, but we should be blocking our door, which rebuts the presumption that we are open for business. Block the mailbox, block it, or get another door that has no mail, that has no letterbox or mailbox.
So if you have a mailbox, like my mailbox is on this, like nailed to the side of my house, and they put something in, I don't have the slot anymore. But if they put something in the mailbox, is that considered that it's delivered to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because you're declaring yourself open for business.
So how do you get your mail? Like you have other things, a card, a letter, you know, like it's not just this nefarious stuff.
You could use the public service, the mailing service, the U.S. Post or whatever it's called.
Oh, like when they have the box that you go there and you get it there.
Yeah, that's called post restant. So that's where you give them an instruction. They may charge a fee, and they gather the post for. Here. Yeah, they could charge a fee here too.
It's like $7 a month or $10.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They gather the post for you, and then you collect it at your leisure.
So if I don't take possession, like I go through it at the post office or something.
Well, you can or go to a cafe and do it. But the point is that you're creating a psychological barrier between the poison that they send, the curse, the voodoo curse that they send. These are all, most of this is cursed communication. Yes. Oh my God. You know, red, lots of red, big block capitals, red, urgent, do not ignore, right? So when you're in a cafe, you're going to have a different mindset. You're not going to take this curse home with you. If it's something that you're disengaging from, you're going to tear it up and throw it in a trash can and go home feeling much cleaner.
Yeah, brilliant. I just want to go back to something you were saying, because I know a lot of people that have stopped paying their bills and just ignore everything now. And, you know, they've done really well for it. You know, they get knocks at the door, but they ignore it. They get people come round, but it's quite easy, I suppose, to just stay inside your house. If anyone's there, I mean, everyone needs to go out, so no one's going to hide in their home forever, but you just go out at whatever times you want and just disengage with people if, I don't know who that is, whatever. But it's people's property that is outside of their homes, i.e. their cars and stuff. Now, you've said that if someone puts a clamp on your car, just angle grind it off, fair play. But is there any sort of notice or anything you can put in the window of your car that if anyone touches this, you know, you will incur a penalty of £10,000 or things like that? I've seen loads of these sort of like tax discs that people put inside their windows. So to protect people's property outside of the home, if they're going to go through this process, what's your best advice for that?
Well, there's so many different ways. It is better prevention. As the Spanish say, 1 gram of prevention is better than a kilogram of cure. That's directly translated. I'm not showing off. I lived there for 7 years. So, yes, it is a nuisance at times having, because you're as vulnerable as your weakest link, and they're not getting in your home, but they can get to your vehicle. So yes, put a notice. I've got 2 on mine, 1 on the driver's side, 1 passenger side. I was very lazy about this. I've only done it in the last year or so. And mine is £5,000. Anyone interfering with this car without the owner's permission is liable to a penalty charge of £5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. And if somebody does fix something, because some of these traffic officers are really pretty low on brain cells, they're really, they're struggling. To say it mildly. And they can literally, and maybe some of them can't even read. For whatever reason, either they never learned to read or they've just come to the country from a non-English speaking land and they can't read. It's certainly not to the level of the legal notice. Anyway, so they stick a ticket on. And I used to know someone, I used to know of someone, going back 10 years now. He earned a living from deliberately parking in the wrong place, but having a sign. He was kind, he just put £500. And their notice was for £30, £60. He would go along to the council and he would offer to pay their £30, even pay it, and just take a photo of their notice and his notice, that their notice was put in breach of his notice. So it's sauce for the goose. Their notice is only as powerful as yours. I mean, yours is even more powerful because you're the owner.
Right.
So he pays £60 and they owe him £500 or £1,000 or $5,000, whatever. And if they didn't pay, he's got a valid claim. He's got a small claim, as we would say in this country. So he used to earn a good living, and so many traffic officers would get the sack because it was costing. It was the northwest of England. It was just north of Manchester, so he got, he got a lot of people sacked as well as making a living out of it. So yes, that's one way, and it's a very good way. You can put the vehicle in someone else's name. So there's lots of strategies. You can put it in some kind of trust. I would only recommend a simple trust for the vehicle, or you can sell it to a friend and lease it back, and they become the registered keeper. There's a lot of strategies, basically.
Let me ask you, since we're talking about cars. I'm sorry, Stu. I told you when I went on his website, I was like, I have so many questions. So, I don't know how they do it in the UK, but here in the States, at least in New York, the most despicable state of New York, what they do is they have these red light and speed trap cameras, right? So let's just say you're at a red, like the light is yellow, it speeds up, like they have them timed. So you're going through, it's yellow, and then it turns red. They snap a picture of your car, and you get a notice in the mail that has a picture of your car with the license plate visible, saying you owe. Most times it's like 50 or 75 US dollars. The other way they get you is they say you can only go like 25 miles an hour. Have you tried to go 25 miles an hour? It's virtually impossible. I mean, it's like
impossible,
right? So you're going, and then the speed traps catch you because you're going whatever. Maybe they give you a 4 or 5 mile an hour leeway. And so we get those too. So the question is, how do you address that sort of thing? Because now they're surveilling you. Obviously, they can tell they have this unlawful, limitation on how you drive and the way you drive and all that kind of stuff. But I have to tell you, it is literally maybe once every 2 weeks me and my kids are getting notices because, for whatever reason.
Well, okay, let me tell you what the position is on this side of the water. We have, under the road traffic legislation, something called a due diligence defense under section 172 subsection 4 Road Traffic Act 1988. You can write to them saying that you don't recall the incident, you don't recall who was driving. Could they supply you the identity of the driver? So you just turn it around on them. And we have someone in this country called peace officers, peace officer David, and I got that remedy off him. So it's a strong remedy, but they're getting suspicious of it. There's too many people using it, so they're trying to wriggle out of it. But it's a genuine. I mean, can you remember what you had for breakfast last Tuesday? Unless you're having the same breakfast every single day.
Right, yesterday. Who the hell remembers what you did? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So why should you? In other words, what the system does is very, very clever at getting you to do their admin for free. And I'll give you a schooling example, because really the predicament that we're in was created in the school classroom. So a teacher will stand in front of a boy or girl, and this happened to someone I know recently, and they will tell the boy or girl, go and get a book from the cabinet over there. Right now, that's an instruction to a pupil who's there as a volunteer to carry out a task for free. So this enlightened girl said, "Excuse me, sir, but I don't wish to be here. You're paid to be here. So I suggest, with all due respect, that you get the book while I sit down and get on with my life." I'm embellishing a little bit.
Yeah.
And he froze in his tracks because there was an instant recognition of the truth of what she said. He's paid to be there. She's not. So if he wants a task doing, it's up to him to do it or to delegate it in a reasonable manner, which is, if you do this favor for me, I will reward you financially out of school funds, or you'll get an extra 10 minutes break or whatever. But let's have an equal exchange here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
so
I've got.
Yeah, just to finish. So what we have, and again, going back to schooling, we've got this programming that suggests that when a figure of authority writes to us or quizzes us or interrogates us or challenges us, our default response is a knee-jerk, trauma-based, fear-based reaction of, oh, I think I better comply because otherwise bad things happen.
Yeah. I'm going to get in trouble somehow.
And just before I go back to Stuart, there's something that going back to the idea of fear and trauma. I had a consultation with a woman who had a summons for jury service. So we're not even talking about a financial claim. This is how bad it is, folks out there. So she had a consultation with me just because she had a summons to do jury service. So there's no threat to her whatsoever. She's being invited to do jury service. Right. So I said, what's the problem? She said, well, I don't know what to do. I said, well, do you want to do jury service? Well, she's a free thinker. She knows that that's a load of bollocks. You know, it's just systemic compliance in a system that doesn't respect the jury because the judge has taken over the jury's position, basically. So we concocted a letter, a rebuttal notice for the jury summons. And then a few weeks went past. And of course, I get on with my life and I've forgotten all about it. She books in for a second consultation. And I was thinking, why she want to see me again? We've kind of dealt with it. So I said, what's the problem now? And she said, well, I've heard back from them, from the jury service department. And I said, so what's the problem? And I said, well, what did they say? And this is the kicker. She said, I don't know. And I said, well, why don't you know? She said, I'm too frightened to open their letter. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're dealing with. This is the problem. So anyway, so I said, where is the letter? I said, well, she's trembling hand. It's here. So I said, okay, well, I can't help you unless you open the letter because I don't know what's going on. So she, with a trembling hand, she opened it up. And then she went offline briefly while she read it. And she came back online. She goes, oh, my God. I said, what? You're not going to believe this. Go on, try me. You know, Mr. Smug. And she said, she read it out. She said, dear Ms. whatever her name was, it's clear to us that it would not be appropriate for you right now to fulfill jury service. Words to that effect. Thank you very much for your communication and goodbye. So that was it. And she could, of course, I could believe it because all she'd done was a very basic rebuttal, asking them to prove that she was under obligation.
Yeah. You're muted, Elisa.
You're muted, Elisa.
Sorry, I had a dog barking. On that subject, when before I understood all this, so this is going back maybe like 15 years or so, I had little ones and I had all these notices for jury duty. And at the time I was married to an attorney, need I say more? And as far as being in the system. And so I get the notice. So I go to the court because I heard somewhere that if you have young children, they can't bother you, because it's probably so unlawful anyway. But the point is, they say if you have young kids and you're the stay-at-home parent. And so I went and I get this very nice guy that worked at the courthouse. And he's like, listen to me. He goes, because I came in with a letter, this whole nonsense. He goes, just you have young kids. Just don't show up. Like he was very, like he was basically telling me, and I guess, you know, he's in this role, but he said, don't worry about it for going forward. He said, you don't have to worry about it. And I was like, so just ignore it. He's like, yeah.
Well, okay, but if the empowered version is you write to them and say, as the mother of 2 young children, what obligation do I have to do jury service? And so that's belt and braces. I mean, this woman
being on the defensive, right? Like most people are defending themselves and giving reasons and excuses and this and that. And that's such a disempowering position. Whereas now you're putting the onus on them to say, what is my obligation?
Yeah. I haven't got anything that looks like a mirror, but you hold the mirror up to them.
Yes.
And stand behind the mirror from a position of empowerment. The power is in the mirror. It's in the power of the question. Sovereigns, or as I call them, souverains, and the difference between a souverain, SUV, and a sovereign, sovereign has sovereignty over something or someone. Souverain has sovereignty over self. Mm. So when I didn't wear a mask or comply in any way whatsoever during COVID, I was displaying sovereignty. And it's very hard to find that word. I only came across it myself about 2 or 3 years ago. That just shows how many keywords they've buried, words and phrases, facts and truths. They've buried them alive.
Yeah.
So yes, hold up you know, like when a police officer asks you a question, ask a question right back. Am I obliged to answer that, officer? One hero, actually from America, it's one of the first videos I ever watched, just said, in a driving situation, rolled down the window and just said to the officer, I do not answer questions.
I've seen that guy.
Yeah. You have a nice day then, sir.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's brilliant. I've used that a few times myself. Now,
has it worked, Stu?
Yeah. Well, we were yellow boarding one day. There was some folks to one. I think you were there, David, and the police turned up. And they were quite, you were there because I was talking to you about them. And they were actually quite nice. But I was having a chat with them and he asked me for my name. I said, am I obliged to give you that? He said, no. I said, I'm not giving it to you then. They're absolutely fine with it. I gave him a light paper. You know, all these sorts of things, it is sort of standing in your power. But I want to say, David, you know, if anyone's watching this, that, you know, they're still paying their bills, because there's some people in the chat that I know that they've taken this, they've got notices on their front door, they've pulled them out. But if anyone's, you know, paying their bills and they want to stop now, what is your advice for them? I mean, I've got your website here. We can have a quick look at that if you like, if there's any resources or things you want them to go to. But what is the best? Just to disengage, do you think?
Oh, if they've been compliant in the past, I think what you have to do, the sensible man or woman separates out the tax years and starts becoming a dissident. To make a clean break, you wait for the next tax year. And what you can do is, if you feel as though the money that you spent in the current tax year should not have gone to them, in this country, we have something called a direct debit indemnity guarantee, and the bank underwrite your wrongful payments, and the payments made in error. Now, I don't know what the American banks have, but the British banks certainly have a guarantee of an immediate refund when payments are made in error. Now, what's the error? Well, the error is I didn't know that I wasn't obliged to pay it. I was paying it under presumption and assumption, and those assumptions and presumptions were false. I didn't know that I'm actually the creditor. I'm actually the beneficiary. Beneficiaries don't pay anything. Once you know about trust law, you know that you've got the creator of the trust, the trustee of the trust, and the beneficiary of the trust. And the trust that was created on our birth, well, we are the principal beneficiary. The crown is also the beneficiary. So never call yourself the beneficiary. Always call yourself the principal with an AL at the end, principal beneficiary. And now these are technicalities, but once you embody them, then you know that you can change your status in small ways. You don't have to do a major a major root and branch status correction. Change your status correction in your mind, and you follow through with some sensible, articulate paperwork or disengagement. So there's a lot to unpack, and I wouldn't want, I mean, I'm not licensed to give legal advice, and I wouldn't want to anyone to embark on any particular path without doing their due diligence, doing some study, speaking to people who are on that path already, you know, but what I would want them to know is that the path is certainly, it's the only true path, because it brings you back into alignment with who you really are, because everything else is a fool's compromise and it feeds the beast. Why would you want to feed the beast? Once you know that there is a beast, why would you want to feed it?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I've got some friends that a couple of years ago, they went through that direct debit indemnity thing and through the bank, and the bank paid them back about, I think they got £9,000 back from the bank for council tax they paid before using direct debit. But what advice would you give to people that, number one, don't use a direct debit? Is there a way around it if you pay your bills in the post office or something? And number two, what you just said there is, if you want to go to the start of the tax year and people are still paying council tax and things like that, and then they want to get on this wagon and think, I'm not doing it, would you say pay up to the end of the council tax when it finishes in February, I think, and then it starts again in April, wouldn't it? Would you say that is your chance to make a clean break for the year coming forward?
Yeah, well, yes, it is. And you can, in the meantime, give them notice of intention to cease residence, and therefore they will take you off their books. You could ask them for a final bill in commerce. So you do the honorable thing, and that would be a clean break. If you're a hardcore, and again, everything is context. You know, are you a hardcore patriot with courage, who's financially struggling? Well, you may want to do something more radical. You know, you may not be able to wait. In that case, then you just stop paying and disengage. So everything depends on your circumstances. Actually, if it's okay with you guys, the light is fading very fast. I'm just going to switch the light on, if that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask. Kate's got a question in the chat as well. Well, it's just run off because she typed this in earlier. Just got a quick question from Kate in the chat, David. I placed my birth certificate into common law in 2020. Can you ask if that was a good idea?
Some people might say it is, and some people might say it isn't. I would answer, I'm not being funny, but I would answer a question with a question. Does what you did reflect your knowing, your consciousness of who you are? So that birth certificate is not you. It's not evidence of identity, and that is written on your birth certificate. So that's not you. So whatever you did it with something that is not you and not yours. Now, I'm not judging, and I'm not giving a definitive answer to that. I'm just asking pertinent questions, because whatever we do, we have to audit what we're doing. And I'm going to pick on myself here, because in the not too distant past, I've done a status correction of plonking my legal name onto land and soil. And I'm beginning to reflect on that and think, because the guy that persuaded me that it was a good idea talked about, well, in effect, you're putting the vessel into dry dock. And it made sense. It did, and it still makes sense to a large degree. But then when I reflect on what I've done, I've declared ownership on land and soil of something that I never owned. So it's, you know, and now that I've got more knowledge about the use of the given names and leaving the surname alone, that I'm beginning to create a bit of a conflict. So I'm giving out advice to use the Christian names only, but I've done a process that involved using my full name. And It's not written in stone. I'm one of the national coordinators. We can have a rethink. We've inherited this from the Americans, which is Anna von Reitz, the lawful assemblies, land and soil assemblies. They're using the full name, but why should we just copy the Americans? Why cannot we think this through for ourselves? If we're calling ourselves sovereign or souverain, then we need to demonstrate that and think things through for ourselves. So, so that's going to be, so in answer to the question, you know, what was her intention? Did she know that that wasn't herself that she was doing anything with? That the ultimate status correction is a mental change, is a change of mindset. It's knowing that you are not the name, that you are a woman under God, or the divine source connected if you have problems with the word God. And what difference does doing what you did make to that knowing? And I'm only asking. So maybe she can come back with an answer.
I think she's put there either the correction of fictional name, but I think she means name there. Either the correction of fictional name. That makes sense.
Yeah, correction. Yeah, but the main correction is knowing that that name is not you, that it's used against you by presumption. And if you're rebutting presumption, so let me play devil's advocate, that I assume that that was her way of rebutting the presumption by putting it onto common law jurisdiction. Well, is there a common law, an identifiable common law jurisdiction to put it onto? Are there any common law courts? You know, again, we don't have any common law courts in the UK, so why would they have them in the US?
Yeah,
there are sheriffs.
Yeah, and she's just said, over the years, I've not accepted any invites to courts, jury duty, etc.
Yeah, very good. Well, so she obviously has some key knowledge. She knows who she is. I won't comment further on putting the legal name onto common law. In my case, it was onto land and soil. I think this is still a bit of a conundrum, and we're all playing catch up. They've had hundreds, if not thousands of years to learn how to trap us, and we've just had a few years to learn to escape the trap. So we have to be kind to ourselves, and if we fuck it up, we have to be big enough to say, and especially someone like me, because it's harder for me to say I fucked up because people assume that I'm not going to fuck it up, but we can all fuck it up. So we have to be big enough to say, no, I don't think we're doing the right thing. We need to look at this deeper and further. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other quick question on this paying thing. Then we talked about, you know, driving infractions. We talked about income taxes. What about utilities? Does that fall under this, or is that sort of a separate issue?
Well, no, it does fall under this. The utilities are treating your supply as a supply in commerce under the legal name. And I think in both countries, commercial supplies can be cut off. But in this country, a domestic supply can't be cut off. They have an obligation, a statutory obligation to supply gas and electricity. And we have intermediaries in this country that we don't, when they use the word supplier in the UK, they don't mean supplier, because the supply would be the national grid for electricity and Transco for gas. But they use the word supplier because we contract with a supplier, but that supplier turns out to be a credit broker that has gambled, that has bought a license to charge you for the supply. And they're gambling on you complying and sending them more money than they've spent. So what you can do is treat them as, you treat yourself as a consumer under consumer credit law and ask them for a consumer credit agreement. Ask them for evidence of supply. I once, on a chat, on one of those chatbot things, I asked a so-called supplier, I asked them, how do you get the gas from your warehouse to my home? And there was a pause on the call, and she said, well, we don't have any infrastructure. Oh, so I said, so you're not actually a supplier? And very sheepishly, she said, no, we're not. So why do they call themselves supplier? What they do very cleverly is they get us to sign something, either in writing or by implication digitally, that says that we agree to them for them to act as a supplier. There you go. There's the trap.
Yeah.
They are not a supplier, but we've agreed for them to act as a supplier. And that's also true of a judge in court. We have agreed for that judge to act as a judge, because there's no such thing as a common law judge. The common law judge is called a jury.
Yeah.
And so we've agreed for them to act. Police constable is a police constable. Well, in this country anyway. But we give them consent without realizing it for them to act in commerce as a policy enforcement agent, otherwise known as an officer.
Yeah. David,
so
Diane, sorry, carry on. I've just got a question for you after you've finished.
Yeah, so it's all about we are in a, the irony is, I was going to say we're in a sea of landmines, but I'm trying not to contradict myself. We're on the seas of commerce, but there's sea mines. Yeah, like there's mines everywhere. We're in a vessel, and explosion after explosion.
Well,
yeah, go on,
that brings in Admiralty law, doesn't it? That and
yeah.
you know, walking into court is like walking on the deck of a ship and that sort of thing. Diane's commented on Facebook, I'm £500 in credit of council tax I've overpaid, but they won't give it back to me. Is there any way she can get that back?
Well, has she asked for it back? And do they agree that it's a credit? And if they do, then she can give them 14 days notice. Otherwise, take it to a small online claim.
Yeah, well,
money claim online, because she's got evidence that they in fact do owe her some funds. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, one more question here then from Wendy. What if your original supplier is taken over by another company and you haven't actually signed a contract with a new company? I've never paid by direct debit either.
Oh, well, that's a classic case for disengagement.
Yeah.
Just go quiet, go grey, go off the radar. You'll get notices or letters to the occupier. And then if you've got your mailing system set up, you can read them at your leisure in a cafe, have a nice coffee and cake, and smoke the cigar that you can now afford to smoke.
Not in New York. You can't smoke inside.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, that's true. No, you can also in this country,
yeah.
Either, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I meant it metaphorically, obviously, but
I know.
But yeah, so yeah, happy days is an expression we use here. It's you know, if it's not even the original so-called credit broker, they need something called a deed of assignment, which is an absolute assignment in writing to have any semblance of a claim against you. But they're only credit brokering. There's the supply is someone else, something else, the infrastructure. If you have a problem with your electricity or gas, you don't call your supplier. You call the national number. And I'm sure that's the same in the States. You don't call your local credit broker or agent. You call the infrastructure, the entity that's responsible for the infrastructure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Elisa, but that's the situation in this country.
Well, so I to be honest with you, I don't exactly know. Like, we have companies, let's call it the electric company and the gas company right here in the States where I am in New York. It's called National Grid in this area for the gas. And then there's PSEG for the electric. So my bill comes from those companies. Now, to be honest with you, I don't know what they have. I don't know what their infrastructure is. I don't know. I'm assuming they're supplying the electricity. I'm assuming they're supplying the gas. I guess I'd have to do a little due diligence to find out where the energy is all coming from. But that's who we interface with. So if you're in New York or the boroughs of New York City, it's Con Edison. Like, it depends where you are. We have these different companies that handle the gas and electric.
If you find them digging up the roads, what's the name of the company on the van?
I don't know.
There
Usually, that would be the company. Yeah, that would be the names I just mentioned. Yes.
Oh, right. In that case, the situation might be slightly different in the States. Okay. Another remedy that people can use for what I call the nervous newcomers, or if you're surrounded by group thinking compliant people, is cancel your regular payments and make either manual or standing order payments where you're in control. And you pay to remain. It's called remaining in honor. And that's true across the board. Utilities, councils, you make a nominal payment that frees up funds that you can use for your own purposes, like to get organic food. Maybe at the moment you can only afford supermarket or great, food. But you've decided that come hell or high water, you're going to eat 100% organic, but you can't currently afford it. So you need to reduce the expenses without going cold turkey, without the trauma of total disengagement. So what I teach on my course is, in fact, one of my friends did it a few years ago, and he wasn't particularly awake about this. He did do it at my advice. I just said, why don't you just pay them what you can afford? And his eyes lit up. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Well, of course you can do that. You're in the sad thing. It's great and it's sad at the same time. It's great that we are in charge, but it's sad that we don't realize it. We are the alpha and omega. We are the bottom line. Without us, they are nothing and they have nothing.
That's right.
But we went to school for 10 to 15 years and we learned the opposite.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I don't know if they do this in the UK, but if you get a ticket, a violation for driving, say you went you were over the speed limit, or you went through one of these cockamamie red light things, you don't pay it. Say it's due, 30 days later, you don't pay it. And they do this with the tolls too. Like, let's say I went through a toll and they have here Easy Pass, so it automatically captures the payment. But let's say my Easy Pass wasn't on, you then get a bill because they capture your license plate. Say the toll was $5. If you don't pay in the $30, they'll add on a $50 penalty because you didn't pay. Now, I mean, I just sit there with the thing. Like in the past, I'll just pay the $5 and be like, fuck you, I'm not paying your penalty. But this is what they do. Like, this is so now people who don't know go, oh shit, now my bill is up to whatever because I didn't pay it. That can't even, I don't know. I don't even know how that's legal. Forget about lawful.
Well, it's not. Because a penalty, we have an ancient code in this country with the Bill of Rights, and you've got the Constitution, so you've got it as well. You can only be penalized after a conviction. So there's no such thing as a civil penalty. There's no such thing as a penalty without a conviction before a tribunal or a court. So what they're doing, they're just trying it on, and this separates the mainstream group thinkers from the awakened souls, because a truly awakened soul knows, wait a minute, I didn't consent to this and I didn't agree to this and I didn't sign any contract. So how can there can't possibly be an obligation to pay it. You can make a voluntary contribution and you can pay the original fee, which could be argued that you agreed to. But it certainly can't be argued that you agreed to the penalty. So it's all a grey area, but the black and white of it is that to add on a penalty to a basic charge is never legal, and it's certainly never lawful. It's called criminal coercion. If they threaten you to surcharge you, that's criminal coercion, which is a criminal offense in the States and in Canada. We don't have criminal coercion in this country. We have blackmail, threatening with menaces under the Theft Act. But we do have something called criminal exploitation. And when I recite you the name of the legislation, your eyes will pop. Well, your ears will pop, not your eyes. It's under the Modern Slavery Act 2015. And this is, I've plastered this all over the place. And I give it on, I've put it on a card for children to use in the classroom. It's called criminal exploitation. When you are induced, which is a euphemism for coerced, induced, brackets, coerced, brackets, into providing a service, which can be fetching the book from the cabinet in the classroom, doing homework, paying a penalty charge, anything, paying a tax when you haven't actually declared it yet and signed for it. If you sign for it, then you're under contract. But when you're induced into providing a service or providing someone with a benefit under duress, so through threats, force, or deception, that's the criminal offense of criminal exploitation under the Modern Slavery Act 2015, Section 1 in this country. And you will have some equivalent under the Constitution. So people are they're not standing in their power. Whenever you are, if you have not signed contractually for a charge, then they are coercing you or criminally exploiting you. End of. And it doesn't matter who they are or what they're demanding of you. It's a criminal offense.
Yeah. Now, David, I've heard a few people talk about putting everything in you own sort of into a trust. What's the sort of way forward with that?
Well, it's if you haven't got a lot of property, if your assets are minimal, it's not worth it. Just leave a will, leaving it to the cat's home or to your favorite relative or friend or spouse or whatever. If you do have a great portfolio of assets, then you would need a trust specialist. Trusts take assets out of the presumed public into the actual private. And if you can find a skilled trust operative, I refer people to someone called Andrew. I won't reveal his full name because he might not want me to, but and it's all done discreetly. So there's a man called Andrew. Over the other side of the water, you've got Brilliance in Commerce, and I'm not an affiliate. I'm just happy to recommend them. So Andrew in the UK, Brilliance in Commerce in the US, and if you're listening in Australia, you've got Solutions Empowerment, who also, I forget the guy's first name, but he's very good, very knowledgeable. Solutions Empowerment. So those are the three main international operatives that are trustworthy, no pun intended. So yeah, it will cost, and so it should, because it's a proper trust. It takes some putting together. I think Andrew's trusts are either 50 pages or 100 pages, according to the complexity. So if anyone UK based wants to take it further, get in touch with me and I'll put them in touch with Andrew. So yeah, trusts are, that's the device the elite use. What we're saying on land and soil jurisdiction is that once we create a community that is actually based in trust, nobody will need a trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is the kind of trust you're like here in the States, in New York, we have trusts and estates attorneys, right? Obviously, they're part of the bar and part of that system. And so they always recommend to people to have a trust, their kind of trust, to avoid probate, right? If someone, God forbid, dies. However, the kind of trust you're talking about, where we're taking out of the public to the private, would those be considered like, I don't want to use religious, but spiritual trusts? Or are these still filed, like, they're not filed necessarily with the court, the court system, because then you're in the maritime. Is that correct?
Well, spiritual religious in a very, very, very loose sense, that you know that you are a divine source creator, and what you have manifest in your life, you are going to devolve according to your wishes. And it's got nothing to do with the government. And if you go through the public, an attorney or a solicitor in this country, that would still be the case, except they'll charge you thousands of pounds for the privilege, way, way, way more than Andrew would. And yeah, so the trust will be, it will reflect your inner knowing of who you are and how vital your wishes are over your estate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when you go through the process with a solicitor or a lawyer who's part of the bar and part of that whole system, they do it because they are trying to prevent you from having to have issues going through the court. However, what I understand about the religious or the spiritual trust is that you are actually in kind of this, you're not owning anything, and you're kind of, God is owning it, and therefore it's completely out of the system of owing any taxes or anything like that. Like, there's a slight difference, correct, between the two, depending on who or how you get it done?
Well, if the estate has made any profit that's taxable, the attorney or the solicitor will hand that taxable portion to the government.
Right.
So that's one difference.
Right.
Whereas a private trust is in another domain.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
It's in a domain, and yes, you could regard it as a higher level. It's in some senses ecclesiastical, which is higher than commercial. Sure. Equity. I mean, both types of trust are equity, but you've got equity stroke statutory, which is the attorney and the solicitor, and you've got equity stroke private common law, which is people like Andrew. And that's where you don't account in any way or on any level to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just got one more question before we talk about some woo, unless Elisa's got anything to ask. I've had a few people say to me about, and these are private pensions, I believe, about cashing in their private pension, because whether they're in a bit of strife or not, or they think things are going to happen sooner and they don't want to wait, but they're worried because the government is going to take a large chunk of that if they cash it in early. Is there a way around that at all for them to sort of cash their pensions in and get the most money they can available?
Yes, provided that they... I have a couple of friends who I've advised recently in that position, and as we sent a rebuttal notice to the Inland Revenue, IRS, HMRC, and as far as I'm aware, and this is months ago, they've kept their full amount, and I've not heard anything. So, you know, so yes, you cash it in, and reserving all rights, all unalienable rights. And if you do get some kind of demand, just ask them under what contract or under what statutory provision that applies to a man or a woman are they demanding payment, or is this criminal exploitation under Modern Slavery Act Section 1? They won't come near you with a barge pole.
Beautiful. That's excellent. Elisa? I mean, sorry,
yeah,
go on.
No, well, yeah, like I say, I've not had final confirmation that they've been left alone. But like I say, it's been months, and as far as I'm aware, they haven't heard back from the tax authorities.
Well, I mean, there you go. The sensible thing to do, isn't it, is if you cash a pension in for, say, 20, 30 grand, private pension, and they send you a bill for 5-6 grand, or that you think they might get a bill for that, just keep that money aside, and then still carry on the process.
Yeah, and also this is actually very important because they are threatening to pull the plug on the fiat system.
Yeah.
And so if you can grab fiat and convert it into usables, utility products, heavy, I was going to say heavy metals, precious metals. And I won't say crypto or blockchain because I'd be hypocritical because I haven't done that, but some people go for that. So now's the time to do it, folks. Get cracking.
Well, a year ago, an ounce of silver in the UK was about £30. Now, even though it's trading at nearly £70 now, you can't buy if you want to buy a 1 ounce silver coin, best value from bullion by post, it's £109.80 for an ounce.
Tell me about it. I've just been through a phase of a few months buying at £60, £70, £80, and then I stopped, and then I looked again. I thought, oh my God, I can't afford the new price.
Yeah,
it's $95.13 here in the States. So that will
probably be the spot price, but then you've got to add on the traders commission.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to sell an ounce back to them, they'll give you sort of pretty much just a little bit over the spot price. But if you want to buy from them, it's like an extra £40.
Yeah. It's going. There is a prediction that silver might even outvalue gold in the not too distant future.
Yep.
So they say that 1 kilo of silver is all you need.
Yeah. And we were talking to Larry Ballard about this because there is a rumor going about as well in this whole operation and Trump walking the world through some sort of global bankruptcy is that Trump might push the price of gold up to $20,000, right? For an ounce, I think. So if silver is going to sort of come to some sort of parity, because it's about 70 to 80 to 1, and it's coming out of the ground at 6 to 7 to 1. If that happens with gold, silver's going to fly as well. I think silver's going to overtake gold because silver is, they use silver in everything. All these, you look at big companies now, whether we believe electric vehicles are a no-go and they've been set up to fail because hydrogen cars are in the vaccine, it's to reveal this whole Green New Deal of gender hypocrisy. A lot of silver's already gone back into the ground. There's 250 to 300 silver paper contracts out there, which are potentially worthless. And the more demand goes up, the less supply there is. Prices are going to soar, especially if these massive companies like Tesla or Samsung or anyone else need all this silver, and they're billion-dollar companies. They're not going to worry about paying you £8,000-9,000 an ounce for your silver if they need it to make their product.
Absolutely.
None of us are financial advisors. We can't give advice. We're just telling you what is going on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to go into the woo-woo stuff, but I want to just have one more question because it's in line with what someone else asked. Say you have a mortgage, right? Whatever. And now, you know how they sell them all the time. Like for 2 months, when I got my house, and of course this goes back 6 years, it's with X company. Then I get a notice a year later, it's with this company. I just got another notice, it switched to another company. I agreed to do a mortgage with the first company, which was like 4 companies ago. Is that, in other words, they sold my mortgage to a different company, however they do it. But am I not under contract with that new company? Because I didn't sign it.
That's interesting because my mortgage started with NatWest Bank and it's not with NatWest Bank anymore.
Right.
It's with a different bank. Same thing.
They do this all the time because we know what they do.
They do. There's a bit of a case law tussle going on. There's two schools of thought. One suggests that it doesn't matter who's asking. It doesn't matter who's asking you for the money as long as they've got some kind of valid assignment. That's one school of thought. So they at least have to show you that they've got you know, some paperwork that transfers the right to your mortgage.
Okay.
That's one school of thought. But another school of thought is that if they're claiming repossession, that transfer is not good enough because they need the legal right to repossess, whereas they've only got the equitable right to keep asking you for payments. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
So in one school of, just to reiterate, so in one school of thought, only the original company can repossess, and in another school of thought, the new company can also repossess, and that's going through the courts in this country at the moment. And the latest thinking is that it may well be soon declared that only the original company can repossess. I don't know what the position is in the States, to be quite honest. But
yeah, I'd have to look at it. But what's interesting is it's sort of in parallel to the idea that with the money system, if our contracts, our mortgages, our whatever, were signed under, let's say in the States, US dollars. But now if we go to a different system, let's say the US note, does that or does that not invalidate all your debts since the new currency has changed and I'm now working in a US note? So my contract was signed in US dollars. If that doesn't exist anymore and we go to a new, wouldn't that technically, theoretically invalidate any debts I have, whether it's credit?
Well, I'm not a financial expert, but common sense tells me that yes, it would invalidate it, but that's
right. But I'm saying nobody's going to do anything about this because we're still on the, US dollar system, according to what's going on. But what I'm saying is it's very interesting because then that would lead to the idea of what the laws of Nasara and Jasara say, where all debts will be forgiven. Well, maybe that's related to the idea that, let's say, the central bank is no longer existing. So now there's no US dollars being the currency of the country, and it's now the US note. So it's sort of like that's what all these things start to like enmesh together to say how some of these things can collapse, and ultimately a lot of these things may be going by the wayside or invalidating.
Well, I think there will be. There is an interim remedy. If you have a spare roughly $2,000, you can find what's called a forensic security auditor. Forensic security auditor. And the one I know actually is American. We don't seem to have one in this country. Or if we do, I don't know them. Forensic security auditor who will check to see whether your original security was monetized on the markets. So if it was sold off, if it was bundled together into a special purpose vehicle, that means your original company A, the original mortgagee, was paid off, and yet you still kept making payments. There's the error for our direct debit indemnity guarantee scheme. I don't know, you would have the equivalent, but it would be unjust enrichment in equity, refundable, give you the right to reclaim all your payments. If you can prove that the original loan note, promissory note, was monetized / securitized.
But doesn't that also lead to the slippery slope of when I originally, or any of us, took out our mortgage? Wasn't that loan originally paid off at the time through our birth certificate money, and they were made whole. The bank or the loaning company was made whole, and we're still getting charged, and we're still getting charged interest. So like the whole thing is fraudulent.
Yeah, it's I can't evidence this, but it stands to reason that our signature on the original loan note gave them at least two permissions. One, to raid our birth account, yes, and one, to act as power of attorney and sell off that promise on the markets. And any payments we made also went into the trust account and paid annuities to the nominee, which is the government. There's the precise details of all that are I'd say, to be honest, are above my pay grade. But those are the broad brushstrokes. So it's a multiple non-disclosure. Non-disclosure is fraud. Fraud vitiates all. But you have to go into their venue to even begin to prove it, and they won't allow it, because if you go in with evidence of fraud, then you'll just be arrested, because they cannot allow that to come out. The best case scenario is an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and a quiet payment off.
Yeah,
and that happens. Some people do get to that stage.
it's very interesting. We had somebody that's in our community was on one of my shows a while ago, and he was saying that on the US, at least in the US, the Social Security card has a number which is affiliated with one of the 10 different central banks in, the Central Bank of New York, Central Bank of Atlanta, wherever it may be. So he ran an experiment. He had like a couple of $3,000 credit card bill. So he entered that. You know how you could go in and put the routing number and all that. So he put the routing number of that number on his Social Security card, entered that as the form of payment, and his credit card balance went to zero. He was like, cool. A couple of weeks go by and he gets contacted. And there's been a mistake and this, that. Anyway, he didn't make a big deal about it, but he just said, no, there's no mistake on my end. I have no mistake. And after that, he never heard from them, never got a bill, never got a phone call. So, he told the story saying, look, I'm not suggesting anyone do this. However, we know that those numbers mean something, and we know that they're banks, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was a very interesting finding. Yes,
you can. You can use your. There's a code. I mean, we have letters. If you use the last, well, the digits in our case, national insurance number. In your case, Social Security.
Right.
And you add on the year of your birth. It does create a bank account number that that can be used to offset. It's called offsetting. And you are allowed to do that. Excuse me. But what you're not allowed to do is treat yourself to great luxuries, because that will have someone, a men in black coming to call, because then you're operating like the elite do. And but you can offset smaller things, no problems. Again, it's something that I've never got around to, but I do know people that have done it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Peter, I just got, sorry, David, quick question here from Wendy, Peter's friend. My husband has a private pension. He can't get access until he's 58. Are there any loopholes so he can access the funds before he's only 51 at the moment?
The short answer is I don't know. I'd have to research that. And well, if I'm researching it, then they may as well do the same research. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds like a contract is in place. There may well be get out clauses. So you've got to do the due diligence to find out.
Is that a private pension? I think you can access it, but they might want to demand some funds off you. It's certainly worth looking into. I know my brother's done something similar. I did something with an endowment. but yeah, there's definitely a lot of research there.
Well, my guess, based on my own life experience generally, is that you can always cash in early, but there'll be a massive reduction.
Yeah. Yeah. But does it matter? You know.
Well, if you turn it into silver, you'll get it back 10 times over.
That is a very good point. And I mean, you know, we're all very cautious about when we talk about Nasara and all these other things. When certain people heard this stuff coming out, they all went and loaded their credit cards up. They were all waiting for the RV to come out, and they've shot themselves in the foot a lot. So never, you know, fuck yourself over doing these things.
Yeah.
But we all know something big is coming in the worldwide scheme of things, potentially over these next few months, definitely up until the run up to April and the golden age and this 250-year celebration in America, and, you know, General Flynn calling for arrests. So if you did want to do something like that, now would be potentially a good time, if you're not going to potentially have to worry about living off your pension in, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years time. You know,
yeah, sorry, Stu. Somebody asked AI. To be honest, it could have been AI asking AI. You can't tell anymore, right? Somebody asked AI, if you had a child now, how would you bring that child up? And there was a whole list of things, do's and don'ts, but the bottom line was resonated very strongly. It said, whatever else, they must not be dependent, because the future for people who are dependent is I'm paraphrasing, but it's not looking good for people who are dependent on the system. Basically, that's what AI was saying. So whatever else you're doing in life, the key to the future is to get off any kind of government or systemic dependency by hook or by crook.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because that is what the government wanted to do. That is why they had so many people by the balls, especially through COVID, because so many people were dependent on the system.
Yeah.
And I've been cultivating independence for a long time now. Still got things to do to make myself even more independent, but you know, I'm not registered with a medical practitioner, not registered with a dental practitioner, not registered to vote. I've even surrendered my driver's license. Obviously not registered for tax. That's 10 years ago. So I've gone grey, and I'm loving it. It's exciting. You know, I mean, I get why it would scare some people. I get that, but it shouldn't scare anyone, because that's where the future is. The future is in that world that we're creating, not a world that's already been created, or the dystopian reality that they're trying to impose on people.
Yeah. And I had heard, remember, Stu, I think you might have been on the show. We had done a show once with Mel, and one of the guests that was on the show said that technically in the United States anyway, it's not obviously illegal, right, to not pay income tax. However, what most of the people that have gone to jail went to jail for perjury. And saying, like, the government says you owe $20,000 and you say, no, I don't. But and this man did this. They say you owe X amount. He says, yeah, that's right, I do. And fuck you, I'm not paying it. So they can't actually, supposedly he did this. They couldn't, he was admitting that he owed this money. He embraced the fact that they told him he owed this money. He wasn't perjuring what the records say, but he told them, I'm not paying the taxes because of it's voluntary and I choose not to, and all this other stuff. And they didn't bother him.
Wow.
So hang on a minute. I'm getting mixed messages. I thought, did someone not go to prison, or are you saying he didn't?
No. So the reason, supposedly, like, these high profile people that they use to scare everyone, this one goes to prison for tax evasion and that one goes to prison for tax evasion. And he said that they technically did not go to prison for not paying the taxes, but for perjuring themselves in saying that they didn't owe it.
Yes. Right. Okay. I lost a little bit in the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. It's more or less how I would put it. No one has ever gone to prison for not declaring. There's no such thing as a positive obligation to do anything. What there is in the legal world is a negative obligation. In other words, if you do something that we disapprove of, there will be consequences. But you have to do something. And doing something does not include doing nothing. Right.
Well said.
Yeah, doing nothing can never get you, unless you are a public official, in which case you're in something called non-feasance in public office. But if you're just a private individual, private individuals never have any positive obligations, which is why they call it positive law. So you've got natural law and positive law. So a natural man or woman can never ever have any positive obligations unless they have contracted for them. So signing a tax return, tax declaration, puts you in the positive world. And if you now go in breach of that, there'll be civil consequences. And if they decide that those civil consequences have been aggravated, there could be potentially penal and criminal consequences. But if you simply abstain, no consequences. There's no, otherwise that would be overt, transparent slavery, and the slavery can't be that transparent.
So let me ask you a really crazy question. We've all heard of Al Capone.
Yeah.
They couldn't get him on, the criminal, the murder, the things he did, right? That were not nice. But they got him on tax evasion. So were his lawyers not astute to the fact that this man, now, of course, he's Al Capone, right? I mean, he's a murderer and sociopath, but let's just assume he's just an ordinary person for the argument. He worked, he built an organization, and now they're telling him he owes all this money. Technically, his lawyers could have argued, right, if they were astute, that he didn't have to pay or whatever the course was, because or he just didn't pay. He was actually doing what you said, like he was just abstaining from the system by not paying. So it's kind of interesting how.
Well, what I would say is that you've got Al Capone the man and Al Capone the business entity.
Right.
And my assumption is that the taxes were owed by Al Capone the business, his companies. And that's a different world. Al Capone the man would have had to sign a contract to pay tax, but his lawyers would have signed the tax contracts on behalf of the companies.
The companies. Got it. Got it.
And even then, that that probably relieves Al Capone the man of all liability, unless he's personally underwritten those corporate contracts. If he didn't underwrite them, then he shouldn't be going to prison. It probably should be his lawyers that are going to prison for it's not that they weren't astute, it's that they weren't awake. This information of the difference between lawful and legal has not been common knowledge for very long.
Yes.
So back in the day, they would have only focused on legal.
Yes.
Not on lawful.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting. And I just use that as a silly example, but you have a lot of people through the years, and in New York, like you had Leona Helmsley, she was a big real estate person, of course some of the celebrities in Hollywood that have, so Yes, yes. And thank goodness for the Great Awakening, right? That people are starting to understand the difference.
Yeah.
Well,
People like
if I
you.
can just if I can just go briefly to my notes, right, which is this is the US situation, but it's similar here. The term income is defined nowhere in Title 26 of the US Code, which is the law that relates to the income tax. So you don't even have a definition of income. But the term income has repeatedly been held by the courts to indicate, quote, gain on capital, close quotes, and not receipts, wages, or a fee received in exchange for selling an item of property or doing a job or whatever. So, so in other words, and in this country, income, taxable income, is profit from capital. So neither in the US nor in the UK is income related to compensation for work done. Now, Al Capone would not be taxable on any work that he did as a man, but he would have been profiting on on various drug and whatever alcohol and drug running companies. I mean, that's profiteering from the investment on capital. So he would have had some legitimate taxable income.
Okay,
But if all he ever did was work for other men and women, no tax payable. But Al Capone is probably not the best example of that.
No,
So
he's not the best example. I just used it, especially the fact that, people knew what he did, so they were out to get him anyway, right? So, but so
I mean, if he worked as an undertaker digging graves for people, not taxable. But if he employs contract killers and tax.
A little different. Yeah. No, I was just trying to make the point, though, that regardless, like this idea of abstaining, but you're right, so much of this has to do with our mindset and the spiritual state that we're in and where we plant our feet in terms of where we are. I mean, that goes for everything that gives us empowerment in life. But clearly this idea of being private is a very, I want to say, new idea, because they've kept us in such fear, and it wasn't until COVID that people had the wherewithal, those of us who had the wherewithal to say, wait a minute, like now you're going a little too far. So now you've awoken the beast in us to say, what's going on here? And, I think that's what's happened. And we've tried to educate our sleepy friends and family to a lot of these things. I mean, people didn't even think twice when someone told them they had to put something into their body. They just listened. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about the ones who said, who really believed for whatever reason that this was helping society. Because you have those knuckleheads out there too. But I'm talking about the people who just lived in such fear because you're told you go do something. And in a sense, thank goodness for COVID, because, right, just really woke so many people up to the point of fighting.
Yeah, well, it galvanized an army into existence that didn't really exist before. And it also enabled us to actually see clearly 2020 vision.
Yes.
We can see clearly who is for real and who's not, and what's for real and what is not. We can see it clearly now. And for me, I've been calling COVID a blessing, the greatest blessing that was ever bestowed upon humanity, because without that clarity, we'd still all be fumbling around in the dark, trying to work out, well, this doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense, and yet people seem to be believing it. But now we know why they believe it, because they're brainwashed and hypnotized and programmed and fearful. So they may be too frightened not to believe it.
Yeah, well, Q was a massive factor in that as well, wasn't it? In the run up to COVID, the awakening and the army that built, and the information and the Socratic method that made us dig for ourselves. So, I mean, we've been on nearly 2 hours. I think we've covered most of that. Just, we'll have a quick chat about what's your eyes on in the world, David. We've got massive moves happening, the arrest of Maduro and so many things going on. It's like you wake up every day and you go, what the fuck has happened now? right? It's amazing. What you're looking at, what you're interested in, and where do you see it going?
Well, there seems to be, you know, the globalists wanted to split the world into essentially 3 chunks. So you've got America, Europe, and Asia. And so there seems to be a move in that direction. I'm looking at the son of David, Gareth, has noticed that Keir Starmer is looking terrified, not just stressed, but absolutely terrified. And I saw only today, I saw a clip that Keir Starmer made the mistake of meeting with prominent globalists in the American political system and banking system, meeting them on American soil to plot against America. And Trump's allies were spying on that. Trump has got a dossier now on Starmer. And if Starmer doesn't behave himself, he's going to prison, at least. That's if he's lucky.
Yeah.
So Trump's got the lowdown on Starmer, which is really exciting. Orban has got the lowdown on von der Leyen in Europe. So we do have white hat operatives that are positioning themselves into a very powerful, you know, do as you're told or you're finished position. So, yeah, on the surface, it's just chaos. It's just chaos, madness, insanity, left versus right, Satanists against Christians, Muslims against Jews, and oh, God knows, it's just total chaos. But these are just stories put out to make the mainstream kind of make sense of all the chaos, but they're nothing to do with what's going on behind the scenes. And then you've got, I'm also looking at, you know, the paid shills that were stirring up trouble against ICE operatives.
Yeah.
You know, there are days, I have to be honest, there are days when my head explodes. And there are, even though I'm a Trump admirer and I love the guy to bits, there are days when I wonder, oh my, why is he doing that? Why has he said that? And then I wonder, well, do I actually have evidence that it was him that said it? Or was it one of the 9 Trump, what do you call them?
Lookalikes,
clones.
Yeah.
Was it one of the Trump clones? And, you know, because it makes sense, because that guy is in about 50 places at once. and he puts in a 45-hour day. It's impossible. So I can only assume that most of the clones are under control of the white hats. Maybe 1 or 2 are under the control of the black hats, which is why, you know, it does our heads in. So I'm also very much focused on, you know, encouraging people to let go of the system, not rely on it in any way, grow your own food, be part of a community, do a status correction, but only do a status correction if it actually puts you in a community that are practical. Don't do one just for the sake of doing one, you know. And learn to trust your instincts, find your true friends, and some of them you're yet to meet. You know, let go of what has to be let go of. And, you know, there are married couples that are having to let go of each other. Maybe even let go of your children, or maybe that you've got 3 kids, 2 children think you're insane. You got to let them go and stick with the one that's on your side.
Yeah.
So we mustn't allow sentimentality to slow us down. So this is, you know, it's easy for me. I'm not a family man. It's just me. So it's easy for me. And like I said, I was alienated from my own family from birth. And I get it. If alienation is new to you, just know that it's not new to some of us, and that ultimately, you know, there has to be a grand separation. The latest evidence from the California coast is there could be a seismic split in the coastal line involving tsunamis, a war. Elisa, you could help me on this. Is water upswelling in New York, like coming up from the subways?
No, however, I will say, and I keep getting my years confused because the last 5 years it all kind of blends, but I think it was 3 years ago when we did have that. And that would make sense because I think they were doing some clean outs at that time. And so, but of late, no, like that was around the same time that we saw the ground swelling New York. We also saw like Disney World, you know, like these different places that we saw that. But right now, no, we're not having. Okay. Yeah. And even though we've got this lunatic who I think is really a white hat playing a role, this communist mayor, the news portrays New York much more like awful than it really is, than what's really going on a daily basis, if that makes sense. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. What I would qualify, what I would say is that when I agree with you, it's a white hat playing a role, playing the evil villain.
Right.
But what's probably the case is that the original evil villain has been disposed of and has had a military tribunal, is probably not even with us now. Yeah. And so
if he even existed, like he might just be a character. We don't even know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got some kind of clone or actor, as you say, actor in place, clone or actor in place, doing a job. Yeah. On a sort of self-serving note, what I would say is if people want to understand better the mainstream narrative, if it's doing their head in, I've got something called the Globalese Lexicon, which they can get from my website, thepeopleslawyeruk.com, from the useful links page. And that will translate globalese nonsense into more truthful, reliable language. So this doublespeak, they make something sound something that you would want, something convenient, something easy, something beautiful, but it belies an evil agenda. And there's also something called a questionnaire to awaken, to sow seeds of awakening. So that's not actually yet on my website, but I'm going to put it on probably tomorrow.
Well, let's have a quick look at your website. That's your website, yeah?
Yeah.
So is there anything you just want us to have a quick look at on there?
Well, if you go to resources and go to, there it is, Globalese Lexicon. There you go.
Okay, that's all there to download.
Yeah. And you've got courses there, you've got consultations there, you've got events. I've got some about to organize a few events coming up. Yeah, so the questionnaire, which is an organic document, adding to it all the time, it's got 52 questions. I'll put that, I might put it on the same page as the Globalese Lexicon and just call it Combating Globalese Doublespeak.
Yeah.
So you've got the lexicon and you've got the questionnaire to sow seeds. So that's that. If you're in wherever you are, you can get in touch with me and join a course, or you can have a consultation. My next event is in Burnley in Northwest Lancashire, but it's a multi-speaker event and it's going to be absolutely rammed. We've got Andrew Bridgen. I'm the MC. So one of the things that I've brought back from my pre-COVID days is working as an MC, which more and more people are seeing that in me, because we've got Richard Vobes, who's a brilliant MC, but we're a bit low on the ground for freedom-loving MC characters. So I'm MCing an event in Burnley on where are we now? Tuesday, this coming Sunday, and details of that will go on the website tomorrow. And then I've got a workshop in also in the north of England, February the 7th. Saturday, February the 7th. But again, I'll put details of that ASAP.
Yeah. You know, I want to throw something out there for thought. We are having an event here in New York, April 25th and 26th, called the Awakening Summit. We're doing it in New York. We had one event in more and more people this year are starting to do things in New York. You know, it was awful a few years ago, but there's all these like hidden awakened people who were afraid, you know, and now they're coming out, especially after this previous election. So we're having an event. Stu and I are going to be the MCs of that event. And if it's on your schedule, we'd love to have you. I think your perspective on a lot of things and the knowledge that you bring. So it might be something for us to chat about. I don't know if you venture, over here these days, but that's when we're doing it. We've got some very, very big patriots that are going to be coming and speaking on different subjects from, monetary, child trafficking, like every subject under the awakened umbrella.
Well, I would certainly, I'd certainly be very interested in that.
Okay.
So yeah, just send me details.
We'll
and
reach out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, and then I just want to get your book up, David, as well. You can have a quick chat about this.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. This is ideal for. It will help people who are still who still want to have some clarity on what's been done to them. So anyone of any age can read this, and they'll get clarity on what's been done to them. And it will help specifically mums and dads of young boys and girls who are considering pulling their boys and girls out of school and want the motivation and inspiration to do that. And the follow-up, which I'm currently writing, called Schooling and Other Crimes Against Humanity, will actually go much further and just say, if you don't want to be an accomplice, if you don't want to be an accessory, before and after the fact of crimes that are taking place in the school, get your boy and girl out now. And in fact, John Taylor Gatto, who's from New York and a high school teacher, an award-winning high school teacher, did a video once called I think he even wrote a book called Get Your Kids Out of Public School Now. And that was probably 10 years ago. Wow. So it's so urgent. And this really is my biggest message. So if I did come to New York, this would be in honor of John Taylor Gatto, who was a New Yorker. I would take that message for, even further than he took it.
Yeah, okay. Brilliant. And I'm just looking at the reviews on this, David. It's 4.8 out of 5 stars, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 90% 5 stars. There's no 2, no 1 stars. And if I ever want to know about anything that I want to buy online, I always go onto Amazon and have a look at the reviews and, see what people are saying about it. It's one of the best place reviews, and it's very rare you see something like that has, nothing on it for the 1 and 2. So there's a lot of really good feedback there.
Well, there is. Some people have said it's changed their lives. Some people have said it's healed them. My best friend read it and it made him cry. He said, no book has ever made me cry. Wow. So it made me cry writing it because it took me so long, but that's another story. But it's obviously I would say this, but it's easy to read. I've made it deliberately sort of paragraphed it off. So each paragraph has got this topic heading. So you're not looking at a massive print, because I don't like looking at a book and wondering, where am I going to take a break here?
Yeah.
So it's so easy to read. I've had 10-year-olds read it. So if you don't like Amazon, and who does, then you can get it directly from me. Perfect. From the website.
From the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Right, let me just put those, because I did make a couple of banners up earlier. If I can find them. There we go. Yeah, so that's School, No Place for Children, a wake-up call. And that's David's website there, thepeopleslawyer.uk.com.
Fantastic. I've got a Telegram channel, and you can get instant link to the Telegram channel just going on the website, and an instant link to the YouTube channel as well.
David, I think that was absolutely brilliant. 2 hours and 14 minutes, absolutely flew there. You must be hungry now.
I'm beyond hungry now. I was peckish 2 hours ago. I'm beyond hungry. I probably need medical assistance right now, except that I'm not insured for it. I'm not signed up for it.
Oh,
thank you so much. This was so valuable and so important. I'm just looking at some of the comments, you know, in the just how important this information is. And we definitely encourage everybody to go to David's website. I'm going to be on there. I was telling Stu, I'm going to be on there like all evening. And by the way, as someone who has taken a lot of courses online myself, I thought what you're charging for this course is a wonderful, wonderful amount. I mean, some of these things are ridiculously priced, and it's so reasonable for the information that you're given. So
I've had people tell me that it's ridiculous how little it is, but I'd much rather charge in such a way that 10,000 or thousands of people can do it, rather than just have a few hundred people pay a fortune. Not interested in that. That's not me. That wouldn't make me the people's lawyer. That would make me the elite people's lawyer.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I would say is, if people want an education in the short term, you know, something intensive, I've got an intensive starting in February. And the other course, what's now the extensive study course, that's eternal. You can hop onto that anytime you want.
Brilliant.
Terrific.
And you can do both. Some people have done both.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David.
Thanks, thanks, Elisa.
Are you still yellow boarding? Are you still out with the yellow borders? They sort of come back.
Oh,
they're
sorry.
doing bits and pieces now.
Yes. Chem Resistance. And with Chem Resistance, they had a year off. And in that year, I went out by myself. They've come back on. They're back on the streets, but we're struggling with numbers. So last Saturday, just gone, I went out on the streets of Canterbury by myself. Well, actually, I had a friend with me. And the wife of Dr. Mike Yeadon showed up. Do you remember him? Do you know him?
Are you in contact with her?
No, but I've told her about my website, and hopefully she'll pass it on to Mike Yeadon, and he'll be in touch because he's local to me, obviously.
If he is in touch, I sent Dr. Michael Yeadon a message on Substack saying if he wants to come on our show. Now, I don't know, that was a private message. I don't know if he's seen it, but if you do get in contact and he'd like to come on, that would be amazing because we'd love to have him on there. Yes. He's given us so much good information over the last 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's one of the real warriors, one of the few that's not dead or in prison.
Yeah, well, he had to move out the UK, didn't he? I think is he in Florida now? He definitely went to Florida for a while. I don't know if he's back then.
I think he may be back. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, he did say he had to get out. The only 2 places he could post online was Substack and Telegram because he was shut down everywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
brilliant.
But I love the outreach. And I would, anyone listening, if you can spare 3 hours a week, get outreaching with the light paper. I don't think America's got the light paper. I could be wrong, but it's a truth paper that's full of the kind of facts that you won't get in the mainstream. So, and it's physical, so it's kinetic. You get to meet the people that think you're crazy, and then when they can see that you're not, they'll take the paper, and that's where the seeds are sown. I can't do it online because they're not on my platforms, and I'm not on theirs.
Yeah, I mean, if people do want to have a look, you can go on the Yellow Board Tour on Facebook, and this is a lot of the gang here. I took that picture, but they cut me out of it, so that was all right. But there's a lot of them, you know, they all stand on roundabouts, couple of hours a week, every Saturday in various towns, and it's nationwide, isn't it? This is sort of like this one is Kent based, so it's always a different town. Saturday 12 till 2, standing there handing out papers to the public, and you know, if anyone wants to get involved, do have a look at that. But David, brilliant.
Yeah, if you're based in Kent and you don't know how to get in touch with us, get in touch with me and I'll put you through to the right people.
Superb. David, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Enjoy your food, and thank you to everyone in the chat. Some good questions there and engagement. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. And where we go, when we go, also.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Take
David,
care.
for all you do. Bye.
See you
Thanks.
later.
This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. And you can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever. That is the metaphor which I frequently think of when I think that I'm not empowered. It is the greatest lesson for me, and I think for everybody else, to know that we're on the winning side and that we win in the end.